So I'll just tell you, I'll explain how product managers can close this gap between, themselves and their designers. So a very unique thing about the product manager and a product designer relationship is how do you converse between each other? How do you communicate between each other, right? And it is very important that this communication is not hampered, because what happens is if the both of you are not in sync, right? If the designer is not synced with the PM, right, or the PM is not in sync with the designer, there are going to be clashes, right? And which will in turn hamper your timeline. It will in turn hamper your quality of product, right? So what we try to do at Zeta also is like, how do we bridge this gap, right? And we try to understand that. So product designers are one of those stakeholders which you as a product manager will work, the most with. And they'll be the ones who will be giving you ideas. They'll be the one who will sit with you and brainstorm with you. And so it's important that you have a very common language that you are discussing on, right? It shouldn't be like the manager is saying something else, the designer is saying something else. Uh, it does not give you that, it does not facilitate shared ownership, right? Which is very important when it comes to, what quality of, designs, or what quality of product you will be shipping out, right? Um, so at Zeta, luckily, I've had the chance of working with a lot of great PMs, right? Which are open to, new things, and what we do is like we started having discovery sessions sometime back between us. So whenever a requirement comes in, we don't directly just take in the requirement and start working on it, but rather what we do is that we'll have a discovery session. We'll sit together, we'll go to the whiteboard, and instead of them just forwarding the PRD to me, what they do is like they'll come and we'll start have a discussion, right? And that is very important, because once you start having that discussion, you will uncover things and you will also get more ideas. Like, so the idea is to get a broader perspective of the problem, right? A broader perspective of the solution space as well. So if you're able to arrive at that, you will be able to understand why you are doing something, and at the same time, the whole team will have a consensus, right? So it shouldn't be like the requirement was A, the designer made B, and now they're clashing. That no, A is better than B or B is better than A, right? It should rather be that, oh, the designer came with B, and the product manager also came with B, and now they're saying, okay, yes, B square is the best one, right? So one way that we do it is by utilizing something called Orca, right? And Orca is a process. It's derived from object-oriented UX. If you don't know what object-oriented UX is, it basically what it does is like it gives you an idea of imagining your product as separate objects, right? And then defining what are the relationships between one object and the other object, right? So an example could be, Instagram. So the Instagram post that you see is an object, right? And what Orca does is, break it even further. So you have objects. So Orca is an abbreviation. It stands for Object Relationship CTAs and Attributes, right? So in Instagram, your object is your post, right? Then you have relationships, right? And CTAs and attributes. Attributes can be when was it posted, right? How many number of likes are there? How many number of comments are there, right? Relationship can be one post can have multiple likes, right? But one particular like will be related to one post only, right? So it's like the cardinality between the two, you're defining those things. And the point is able to arrive at all these things before you go to the design table and start with visual design. You will be in a much better space because you will have stakeholder buy-in beforehand, right? And that is very important because it saves you time in the long run, so that there is clear expectation that this is what we are trying to solve for, this is what our goal is, and this is how we are doing it, right? So having that stakeholder buy-in early on ensures that the feedback that you're getting from your product managers, right, is clearly communicated to the design, right? And it's on the information basis and not on why is this color like this? Why is, why have you used this border radius? Like these can come. These are like more aesthetic things that you should discuss, but later on, right? Before that, you need to confirm on what are the things that you want to show and what is the information architecture that you're, trying to solve for. So what Orca produces, right? The first thing that it produces is an object map, right? So we call it a discovery session because that object map is the first time you are visualizing the system in terms of its basic components, right? And it is important that you do it because you will be able to visualize the system and you'll also be able to understand which information is coming from where. So usually what happens is for a single transaction also, which happens, there are multiple microservices which run in the background. And sometimes um, you will think, okay, fine, this will come. But as a product manager, you need to understand which platform is supplying you this so that you can solution it there, right? And all these things, if I'm able to expose the whole system in terms of objects and their relationships, right, and the CTS and their attributes, it becomes even easier because when you go to your developers for a grooming session, right, well, they understand it because they use object-oriented programming, right? So they are exactly in that paradigm. And now what you have done is like not only you have bridged the gap between products and design, but you have also brought in dev, right? So it gives you a complete picture. It makes it easier to collaborate with different people. And and since the devs also understand it, right, it gets like a little easier to basically implement it as well, right? Um, the another thing that we do a lot of times is incorporating data, right? So whenever a product manager comes to me with a requirement, they just don't come with the requirement. They come with the actual data. Where is it dropping, right? And it's important to know where is it dropping because as designers, you will be you're charged with creating hypothesis as well, that why this is happening. And when a product manager comes to me with data, then we can sit and discuss why this is happening, right? Understand the scenario and have an inspiring insight because when they're coming with data, they're not just coming in with their worldview, they're also involving others' worldview. And when you mix all those things, you get a very diverse, you know, uh, idea of what the scenario is and how to solve it. So that is there. So build a common ground before you actually start, or ask your designers to work on the designs because that will save you a lot of time between the inception or the conception part of it and the implementation because you'll be able to conceive the idea in a much early fashion, right? Much easier fashion. And then the designer can do their job of solving it even more, making sure that the hierarchy that you guys define while you're sitting together is correct and in place and the whole system is usable, right? And not just a bunch of functions put together. So that is there. So by building like these small things, by building, incorporating such processes where the whole team sits together, you get a boost in collaboration and then bridge the gap between you and your product designer.